After the tragic killing of 3 children in Southport and the injuring of more, far-right rioters descended on the town to set fire to police cars, to throw projectiles, and to attack the community's mosque. It was a despicable demonstration of mourning, interrupting a community in grief by selfishly occupying their streets. But the riots didn't originate in the streets. They originated on Telegram and on social media. In particular, immediately after Monday's horrific attacks, misinformation and disinformation went viral on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. Many accounts, including some very big ones, falsely identified the suspect, sharing an Islamic-sounding name. Others openly asserted that the assailant in the stabbing attack was some combination of a Muslim, an asylum seeker, a channel migrant, and someone on an MI5 watch list. Some even claimed the media was lying about his age in order to withhold information about his religion and country of origin. And the flood of misinformation was amplified by some very big accounts. This was from Andrew Tate.
So an undocumented migrant decided to go into a Taylor Swift dance class today and stab 6 little girls. That's right, somebody arrived in the UK on a boat. Nobody knew who he was. Nobody knows where he's from. The media is, of course, hiding the fact that this is a 17-year-old male. They don't want to highlight how ridiculous it is that we allow military-aged males, combatants, to flood our shores.
So that was all just completely made up. This guy, this suspect did not come to this country via a small boat. The police have confirmed he grew up in Cardiff. Right? So this is not someone who came in a small boat. And sort of repeating, this is one of the most sort of horrible, outrageous statements you hear from far-right figures, which is sort of calling people who are coming here, on small boats, desperate situations, calling them fighting-age males, as if some sort of civil war is about to break out. Now, you might think, why does it matter what Andrew Tate says? He's a completely ill-informed idiot, which he is. 12 million people saw that video. It's a lot of people. Now, you might imagine in a previous day and age, that video would have got taken down from Twitter or X. Maybe even Andrew Tate would have been suspended for sharing such blatant, dangerous misinformation. But no, the video is still up. Obviously, Elon Musk doesn't seem to mind. New MP for Reform UK, Nigel Farage, also posted to social media. He said this.
I have to say there are one or two questions. Was this guy being monitored by the security services? Some reports say he was, others less sure. The police say it's a non-terror incident. Just as they said the stabbing of an Army Lieutenant Colonel in uniform on the streets of Kent the other day was a non-terror incident. I just wonder whether the truth is being withheld from us. I don't know the answer to that, but I think it is a fair and legitimate question. What I do know is something is going horribly wrong in our once beautiful country.
It's just so irresponsible for a sitting MP to say, I'm just asking questions. I don't know. Maybe the truth is being hidden from you. Was he on a terror watch list? I don't know. Some people say he is. Some people say he isn't. I mean, it's exactly the language that Donald Trump uses, sort of essentially, right? And, this kind of, obviously there have been lots of right-wing politicians in this country for a very long time, but this kind of far-right YouTuber way of talking, I'm just asking questions. I don't know, maybe he was on a terror watch list. Some people have said he is, some people have said he isn't. To have someone who is now a member of Parliament sort of say this is, I think, relatively new in this country and very, very dangerous. GB News' Darren Grimes also fanned the flames with posts like this. Today, children were murdered. Today in Parliament, MPs called for more refugees to be allowed in and bring their families. I cannot tell you how much I detest them. And there's obviously no evidence whatsoever that this person was a refugee. And obviously, I mean, even if he was a refugee, the idea that then you'd sort of say, oh, because there's been this person committing this outrageous crime, we shouldn't have rights for refugees would be outrageous in and of itself. But this is clearly just someone spreading hatred, frankly, without any evidence that what has happened has any relationship to the kind of hate he's trying to spread. Also joining in the sort of misinformation sort of battle was boxer Anthony Fowler, who posted this.
Please tell me why our government let some sick, demented fella from Syria into our country. How has this happened? Like, he just stabbed 8 children at a Taylor Swift dance class.
The suspect is not from Syria. So the suggestions are that he's of a Rwandan background, but brought up in Cardiff. Other posts emanated from more openly far-right accounts like Tommy Robinson's, who founded the English Defence League, the group believed to be behind last night's riots. And academic Mark Owen Jones has revealed just how far that far-right messaging travelled. So according to Jones, there were over 20 million impressions on Twitter of posts speculating that the attacker was a Muslim, a migrant, a foreigner, or all three. That was double the number of posts denouncing that speculation. Helena, I mean, I suppose seeing sort of far-right fringe characters like Andrew Tate sort of piling in here, that is worrying. Also, something to be expected. Seeing an MP sort of say, just asking questions, I mean, that does feel new, doesn't it?
And absolutely, it does feel very new. And of course, that there is definitely a big difference between the kind of grifter types who are using this to further their own personal brand, who will use weasel words. Both of them use weasel words, but the grifters, they'll just do plausible deniability. Darren Grimes saying, well, here's these two things that are completely unrelated, but you should be scared, so please subscribe. And Andrew Tate spent the other half of his little rant in his car talking about him and how they're trying to attack him for being toxic masculinity or whatever, when it was nothing to do with the issue. Right? These people are just grifters. They're doing it for their own bag at the end of the day. But people like Nigel Farage, people like Tommy Robinson, they have agendas specifically that they are trying to push. And they will use these weasel words like, I'm sure that everything's okay, but we must ask the questions, right? Just asking questions. And this is because they have specific narratives they're trying to push. I believe personally, this is my speculation, that Nigel Farage only really cares about these things to try and further his own anti-migration campaign for his political party and, of course, his own personal belief in lower migration. And so any amount of societal backlash that comes from pushing that narrative helps his own personal political campaign. But there's also obviously the innate Islamophobia that you've seen from, in my opinion, essentially from Tom Robinson over these years, that's being pushed, and the reason why he's trying to foment these kind of things in the background. It certainly helps the groups that he belongs to that are there to push an Islamophobic narrative, in my opinion. The question is, of course, though, the line that they will also go with and saying, what's happening to our country, what's happening to our communities? But why would they immediately jump on or even disseminate things that are clearly false? So why would you care about whether or not this person was a Muslim or not when there is no official information at all out there yet confirming that it is, other than if you deliberately wanted to be able to push an an Islamophobic narrative here? Clearly, you're not concerned about the individual communities, about what's happening in Southport to the people who've been traumatized. If you're there, first of all, spreading spurious nonsense about the nature of the attacker that just happens to fold into your already established worldview, and also going there and causing riots while these people are trying to grieve. There's no concern there whatsoever. And of course, there are people out there who do have genuine concerns, right? Knife crime has been up since 2012 and has been rising outside of the pandemic period. But of course, people's concerns can be based in material conditions as well. That's why knife crime is up. That's what causes increases in crime, is the kind of the collapse of people's material conditions from 2010, 2012 up until now. And those people who also are there experiencing the material conditions deteriorate are ripe to be radicalized into positions that we've seen now. I don't really actually want to pour too much scorn on people who get caught up in this radicalization. I really much want to blame the ringleaders at the top, who are the ones essentially trying to, use misinformation in ways that is creating problems in our society. And the problem, of course, is that this isn't just in the UK as well. The people who spread this kind of dangerous information are the same kind of people that we are seeing spread across the far right across Europe. Like the kind of ideas that they're trying to spread as solutions to these problems, that they are helping to create scare stories about things like demigration as a political policy, or this idea, the kind of conspiracy theories you get in the background about cultural Marxists trying to undermine the West, because these are very much the fear that a lot of these people have is the falling apart of the West that you see. This is a top-down problem, right? This is not this isn't coming from the bottom up. It's coming from the top down. The kind of information that you hear, the kind of solutions that you hear, they're not coming out naturally from communities. These are coming from places like the think tanks. They're coming from the media organizations that have been continually pushing Islamophobic narratives for years. And people who are at the top of the kind of the ringleaders of these movements are helping to disseminate these and push these theories forward. And all this is doing is causing even more discontinuity in our communities and even more hardship for everybody. And it's really dangerous.
I've seen people comment, and it does seem quite persuasive to me that probably it seems like the far right, the speed at which this happened, it doesn't seem like it was sort of people who looked at Nigel Farage's video and thought, oh, I'm really angry now, I'm going to turn up to Southport of their own accord. It seems like something which was organized in the background on pre-existing networks, on Telegram or whatever. And there have been suggestions that with a new Labour government, the far right are really, really sort of looking for sort of interventions they can make to shift the narrative in their sort of toxic direction. I do wonder, though, what the strategy is, because I don't think Tommy Robinson and his sort of band of thugs will have created many new allies by going and starting a riot in a community which has just suffered this great tragedy. So it is a bit confusing to me to see what the end game is. I can see, in the short term why these people have turned up, because they love a fight. They want to sow division. But if they are trying to sort of expand the number of people who are sort of part of their, proto-fascist movement, I don't really see what this sort of horrific action is achieving, even on their sort of horrible terms. Let's look at one particular rioter. It's a bit of a silver lining in the story here. He received some poetic justice. So this was one of the hooligans taking part in the riots last night. So you saw there a gentleman in that, I don't really want to call him a gentleman, a thug, in a grey jumper, jumping up and down. Now imagine this as a response to sort of, you've got 3 young girls who were dead. You've got other children in a critical condition, 2 adults in a critical condition. You've got a community which is completely grieving. And, you say, I'm here to protest some kind of injustice. You're jumping around like this, like kind of partying in the street. What the hell are you doing, right? It's completely disgusting. I think, 99.9% of the British public looking at that will think this is a disgrace. Let's look at what happened to him just slightly later that evening. That brought his spirits down a little bit. When I first saw that on Twitter, obviously the thing that sort of you notice straight away, I was looking at it on my phone, is him getting hit in the crotch with a brick. I hadn't realised until sort of someone mentioned it on Twitter, and then it's much obvious actually looking on a bigger screen that he'd actually got hit in the head twice, I think, before then getting hit in the balls with a brick. Looked incredibly painful. If you're going to be a far right rioter, the place you shouldn't stand is between the rioters throwing bricks at the cops and the cops. Helena, this horrible gentleman doesn't seem to know where one should place oneself when taking part in a racist riot.
I mean, one thing I would say is that it's very disarming for a lot of these people who would make themselves out to be someone who should be feared, when it's very easy to mock them online when they do something like that and end up getting hit in the crotch with a flying brick. And I think it kind of actually, it folds into this kind of change in strategy. This is the words came to my mind, but the change in strategy that you've seen from the Democrats in the United States, rather than attacking the right wing in America as being these dangers to society or whatever, this calling them weird. Like there was another video I saw that was spreading from the protests that we'd seen, or the riots that we'd seen in Southport. There was just some guy with like a bag of tinnies. They're sitting there like chugging a can of lager. And I'm just like, yeah, that's the first thing I always think of when I'm going to this protest over something I have this genuine strong feeling about. First, I'm going to go to Tesco, pick a bag of cans to take with me as well. It's a very kind of weird situation that I saw there. So, trying to undermine the ways in which these people would try and portray themselves, I think it's a pretty strong strategy.
Sticking with the far right, unfortunately, I suppose, Tommy Robinson has been tweeting today that there's going to be another demonstration outside Downing Street this evening. So that'll be, depending on the size of it, hopefully it'll be small and a failure. Maybe someone will get knocked in the gonads again by a brick. Who knows? As I say, I don't actually see the way this has panned out as a sort of, it doesn't seem to me that this is going to be a winning formula for drawing more people into the far right so that these sort of things will grow. I mean, obviously, I think there are many sort of situations and organizing strategies that are going on behind the background, which means that we could see more of these get bigger in the future. But I can't imagine there are that many people in the country who saw those scenes last night and thought, great, I want to be involved in this, because it is just so obviously a despicable and embarrassing, frankly, thing to find yourself doing.